Live from Capitol Hill, it's Thursday, the 26th of March, year of our Lord 2020. This is War Room Pandemic, episode 75, live on the John Fredericks Radio Network, on America's Voice.news, the streaming service of the Trump movement, now on Dish, Channel 219, on Newsmax TV later in the evening, and of course, FM 99.1 and 103.9 in Chicago, in the Chicago suburbs, also globally on nexus.org, IRRS, everywhere in the world, from South America to the Middle East, Africa, Europe, Russia, India, and of course later in the day, subtitled in Mandarin on G News, into mainland China and Hong Kong. Okay, historic day, another historic day, and it's not the history is not the chairman of the Federal Reserve being on Savannah Guthrie on the Today Show. But that's a big deal. That's a signal that they got to have somebody go out and explain to the American people in pretty basic terms exactly what's going on here. And the chairman of the Federal Reserve couldn't be more blunt that there's a blank checkbook to support this economic and financial crisis that we're now in around this pandemic. We'll get into later in the day and what we're going to do in the days and weeks ahead. Understand that does come with a cost. This is not, although interest rates are at zero, this money is not free. I want to bring on though first. Remember, every day we analyze pandemic. We analyze the economic crisis triggered by that, both the surface, which is all the perturbations you see today, the collapse of the economy, the collapse of aggregate demand, but also into the supply chain. Both the medical supply chain, which is going to become a bigger and bigger deal. India just announced they're not shipping any more drugs to us out of India that deal with this pandemic. But the deeper issues related to the supply chain in China, and also all the issues related to China, and then the financial crisis, the $4 trillion bazooka fired at this crisis to support the capital markets by the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Also, and, call me a little bit of Chicken Little on this one, but I've been wondering about this one for years. Negative interest rates now in the 90-day T-bill. That means they're paying you to buy it, essentially. Okay, I want to bring in Steve Cortez. You know Cortez is one of the senior members of the Hispanic Advisory Committee for President Trump, one of the earliest guys from Wall Street onto the Trump train, a real spokesman during the campaign, also during the administration, now the host of a big hit radio show on the Salem Broadcasting. Love the folks at Salem Broadcasting Network. They're in Chicago in an afternoon show. You're 5 to 7 Chicago time, Steve?
That's correct. The PM drive, 5 to 7 p.m., and it can be streamed anywhere, 560theanswer.com.
So I blame you. I mean, we had no impact on the folks in Chicago. We're on FM 99.1, 103.9, 2 hours every day. Nobody paid attention to us. They're all at St. Patty's Day weekend, all the hammerheads in Chicago. I love you, all the Irish. They got, you're sending me the things from your phones. All the bars are packed. Everybody's there. Is that changed in Chicago?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, listen, the Chicago is a ghost town right now, probably like most cities in America. But I have to tell you, there, you get on the highway and it's as if it were Christmas morning, even at rush hour time. And so this city has largely shut down. Shelter in place, is very much a reality here, as I suspect it is nationally.
I want to go to the to what we call, and we agree with President Trump. You can't shut down the economy. What this is, and they're calling it the first phase. It's not really stimulus. It's really a relief bill. It's to essentially bridge us to the other side of this, whatever this shelter in place or this quasi-lockdown, whatever we're this netherworld we're in right now. But this is to bridge the aggregate demand. So I want to have it from you because people don't realize. They see you on Fox. They see you with the Hispanic Advisory Council. They see you opening for President Trump at some of the rallies. But they don't understand that your day job is you're one of the most sophisticated guys around on the street, and you've been a trader. You and bowling have come out of the pits where really you got to bet your capital every day and take your knocks. So you understand markets and you understand the psychology of markets. Put in perspective about this the $2 trillion stimulus bill today.
Right. Well, listen, Steve, and you're exactly right. Like President Trump, I'm new to politics. I got into politics really with Trump. I come from Wall Street, from financial markets, and from small business. Own my own firm, worked for some big Wall Street firms. And when I look, from that perspective, when I look at this relief package, there's a lot I don't like in there, particularly the things that are not germane to economic recovery, things like assistance for refugees, $25 million for the Kennedy Center. It's a small amount of money in the scheme of things, but symbolically it's important. Having said that, it looks like the president is going to sign the bill, and I think he needs to. Why? Well, the main reason is because finally we are going to get actual cash in the hands of consumers that is desperately needed. We have millions of Americans out of work. We got a terrible piece of data this morning, initial jobless claims, which comes out every Thursday. Massive record, over 3 million people out of work. However, the good news is I think that cash is going to get to them, and relatively soon, within weeks. As important is the lending that the federal government's going to do. And I know we're going to talk about the Fed part shortly, but on the congressional side, the lending that is now authorized to small businesses. Small business is the economic engine of this country. They have laid off millions of people. A lot of them are teetering on the edge of insolvency right now. We need massive federal relief. This is not the kind of thing that Steve Cortez or Steve Bannon normally calls for, right? This kind of massive government action. But these are unprecedented times economically. And I'm a firm believer that this is no time to engage in sort of better economic philosophizing. This is, we have an economy to serve the citizens of the United States, not the other way around. Our citizens are not only economic agents to serve national output. That is not the American construct. And given that, this is a time for massive temporary assistance to get us to the other side of this health issue.
Tell me what you do. I want to go back and be specific. It's $2 trillion. What are you not excited about? Do you think it's enough? In a second, we're going to address how it actually gets there, just in the macro sense. What don't you think not enough money went to the little guy and too much to the big corporatist?
Exactly. Not enough to the little guy, and sort of not even necessarily the little guy, but the medium when I'm talking about individuals. So, for instance, right now, you're only going to get the full assistance if you make up to $75,000 based on the last tax year you filed. For most people, that's 2018. Well, Steve, there's a lot of people who maybe made $75,000 or $100,000, and if you made over 100, you get zero. So let's say you made $100,000 in 2018, and you are now out of work today. You are probably in dire straits, particularly if you live in an expensive place. You can make $100,000 and have kids in Washington, D.C., and particularly, let's say you have a child in college, you are barely getting by.
You're living.
Right?
If you're making $100,000, you're making $100,000.
You're not getting a check today. I think that's a huge problem.
You're living a paycheck to paycheck if you're making $100,000 in a city like New York or D.C. with a couple of kids, with one child.
Yeah. And so, what I think should have happened. Look, I think the president has to sign this. We need more to come, in my view. That's certainly my advice to him, to the White House, is that this is an important step. We need more to come. But what should have happened is every single American should have gotten assistance, and then it should have been based on 2020 taxes. In other words, if you end up not qualifying because you have a good 2020, you don't get laid off right now, your job is fine, then you owe that back. The government effectively gave you a loan. That would have made a lot more sense. If you're $1 million law partner, you get your check, you put it away, you send it back with your taxes, basically. That's how it should have worked. So I don't think it's big enough and bold enough. It's not broad enough. But all of that said, it is something, and we need something, and we need reasons for hope. We need reasons for confidence, and it's better than zero.
Steve Mnuchin's gone out of his way not to call these bailouts, but is this? It's not the fault of the airlines, except we'll talk later in the days and weeks ahead about the stock repurchases and leveraging up to do that. Because remember, in corporate finance theory, you buy your stock when it's cheap. What these guys did is bought the stock relentlessly on the way up and leveraged up to do it. That's a topic for a different day. But have we nationalized by giving this? Are we nationalizing essentially these industries? Is Nancy Pelosi basically going to get diversity boards? Are they going to get the ability to do the climate change around the airline industry, Boeing, and other things they have to step in and bail out?
Right. No, listen, I don't believe we're nationalizing them. We certainly shouldn't, okay? And it's outrageous that Madam Speaker, after taking her spring break, she and the rest of the House in the middle of the biggest financial crisis, at least since 2008 and perhaps since the Great Depression, they decided to take spring break and go on vacation. Once she came back, she tried to insert a ridiculous leftist wish list and superimpose it upon this relief package. That's outrageous. But to the point of the government assistance, I think this is critical. This is nothing like the bailouts of the credit crisis. Many companies, most companies, when you look at Wall Street, acted incredibly irresponsibly in those days. They were greedy, knowing that they had the backstop of the taxpayer. That is not remotely the case right now. This virus is an act of God. This is something superimposed upon the United States, something that no one could reasonably predict. Not President Trump, not the CEO of American Airlines, and certainly not a line worker who just got laid off from a restaurant in Chicago. Nobody could effectively prepare for this. And given that, this is the proper role of government. I don't like big government, but this is the proper role of government to provide, again, the bridge. I'm not talking about new agencies and bureaucracies and entitlements, none of that. But on a temporary basis, massive, immediate fiscal assistance to be, as you called it, the bridge. By the way, Jerome Powell also used that phrase today, the bridge. This is a bridge to the other side. This is not a new federal program that should be in any way lasting, but it's a necessary bridge.
Last thing, your capital markets, and the last part is this, the financial crisis. The 90-day T-bill went negative today. You've got this $4 trillion bazooka that Fed Chair Powell talked about. They've already used. You've got, or process of using. He said you got a blank check on NBC this morning to continue to use it. Where are we in the capital markets part of this, and are we going into treacherous territory?
Steve, I believe capital markets are starting to stabilize. I mentioned that terrible jobless claims number that we got this morning, by far the worst since we've been doing that, since we've been recording those in history, way worse than even the credit crisis. But you know what? Financial markets actually reacted very calmly to that. Right now in the pre-market, stocks are actually trading well. So I think things are starting to stabilize. And the reason I think, by the way, is because of Powell. His decision to go on Today's Show was genius. It's highly unusual to have a Fed chair on the Today Show. I mean, it would be like in the old days when Louis Rukeyser did Wall Street Week. It'd be like him having on a rock star, right? Like, this is just not the typical pairing, but it was important. And what he did, most importantly, was not just appear to calm the American people and to calm markets, but what he did is he said, we're doing something unprecedented. The Fed is going to lend directly to Main Street. I think that was the biggest news of the week that got buried in so many other headlines. The Fed they're calling it the Main Street Business Lending Program. The Fed is going to act not as the banker to the banks. They're going to be the bankers to Main Street now and lend directly to even small businesses. And when Samantha Guthrie asked him this morning, she said, but could you run out of ammo? This was his quote. He says, when it comes to this lending, we will not run out of ammunition. That was his actual quote. So he is telling Main Street, we have basically unlimited ability to lend to you, and we are going to start doing it. It's unprecedented. And we need those kinds of unusual, unprecedented actions in a time of crisis like this. So I give Powell, and I'm normally a critic of the Fed, I give Powell enormous credit here. He's largely doing what Congress has been too slow to do. He's saying we have powers, we can step in temporarily, and he used your phrase, Steve, he used bridge. He said this is relief and stability. It is a bridge to the other side of the health crisis, and it will work. Here's the thing, Steve. There's a lot of reasons to be concerned. There's a lot of angst, obviously, out there. There's also great reasons for optimism. This kind of action, we're all calling for action from the president, from the Fed chair, from the Congress. This kind of action is what gives people the confidence to not get rid of their employees, to keep their business open, and to get out of the health crisis and then thrive again.
Real quickly, in 15 seconds, is the dollar going to get crushed here?
I think the dollar gets hit, and that's a good thing right now. We actually would like the dollar to fall because that's going to make it easier for us to export to the rest of the world. But yes, I'm dollar bearish right here, and that's good.
You're so easy. Okay, Steve Cortez, the Salem radio show in the afternoon, one of the great spokesmen for President Trump. Steve, thank you so much for coming on, and absolutely a brilliant Wall Street guy. Okay, we're going to come back. We're going to try to get Eric Bowling on here. We got other analysts we want to jump in here. War Room Pandemic, the financial and economic part. We'll return in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room Pandemic, episode 75. We're live from Fort Defiance. On an increasingly lonely Capitol Hill, the Senate voted and split, right? John Thune not feeling well, thinks he's got the virus. Why do you go back to South Dakota?
Why do you hop on a flight, even if it is a charter flight, with his security guy, with a couple of pilots, with everyone at the FBO? So, hey, don't worry. We only possibly infected 5, 6, 7 people.
This is the problem. We don't want guys not feeling well flying back to the upper plains, okay? We're trying to keep the upper plains that President Trump is trying to unlock, right? That's one of the ones that doesn't have a problem. Don't go. I guess what's the over and under on the body man having a sore throat over the weekend?
But hey, he wore a mask on the plane, so
got that going. But did he wear a shield?
No.
Dr. Maria Ryan's still inside my head with the shield.
Oh, last night, I got to tell you this. So we talked a little bit about economies and businesses that are changing. The buffets are totally wiped out at the Whole Foods. So there's just nothing there. But obviously that's a Captain Obvious. They now have at the Safeway near my house these plexiglass shields around the cashiers. So it's not the full mask, as Dr. Ryan said. But
so she's right. Okay.
Yeah,
you
so
get
she's
the
right.
shield, but you're not wearing it on your head. You got it in front of you.
Right. So it's like going to the payday loan place or or the check cashing place. One of those.
Not that Jason Miller's ever been to one.
No, or one of the or one of the
just what he's heard.
or one of the Chinese fast food places in the hood. Where you got to go and it's behind the bulletproof shield. But no, that's grocery stores are going to change.
Yeah, social. Okay, we've got now. We had Steve Cortez on first. We now have another guy that you know as a television personality, as a spokesman, as somebody who's been one of President Trump's biggest supporters. He's now got one of the hottest shows in the country on Sinclair Broadcasting, and he interviews the top guys. I think he did Kudlow yesterday. But what people don't understand, he's also a Wall Street guy, and this is a guy who's been betting his own capital for 30 or 40 years, Eric?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, you've been how long have you been in Wall Street as a guy betting your own capital in the markets?
80. I watched the stock market crash in 1987 from my computer screen, and then I spent 20 years on trading floors, trading equities, trading gold, trading oil, trading everything. So always for my own account. So I feel it,
So walk us through. Tell us, what is your assessment of the bill that's going to pass by the House today and go up for the president to sign? What's your assessment of this bill? And then I want to walk back to your plan that you've been talking about, you've talked to the president about, and it may be in a part of a phase 2. But give us your assessment of what we've just done, and then tell us about what we should do.
Yeah, Steve, and you and I talked about this for a while. My concern is that this thing is at $4 trillion total all in so far, looking like it can go to $6 trillion. And the best I can read this is $300 billion to people, to families. Now, remind everyone that it starts at $75,000 income, adjusted for AGI and down. It's not going to get to enough people. It's not enough money. It's 4-5% of the total outlay goes to what everyone's calling workers. I had Kudlow on my show last night, and I asked him about that. So what? Yeah, okay, I understand we need to maintain liquidity in the business sector, in the banking sector. I get that. You're adding liquidity. That's very smart, but you got to get demand. You have to get demand. You have to spark demand. And he's kind of taken aback a little bit, like I wasn't completely in love with what they're doing, and I'm not. I think they can do these things, but I don't think they need to spend $4 trillion doing it. I don't think the Art Center needs money. I don't think Nadler needs money for art projects in New York City. There's too much junk. There's too much fat. There's too much pork in this thing. And as you know, Steve, the plan that we talked about last week on your show, the plan that I gave to Kudlow on the air last night, where he's like, not a bad idea. We'll have to look at it. Well, why the hell are they not looking at it before this? They've had it for 10 days on the president's desk.
Well, let's go. No, but I want to go. I
think they're doing what they know how to do.
I want to go.
Salvage the business sector and the business-related parts of the economy. My point is, there's a vacancy right now. It's a vapid wasteland. It's a desert. And it's called demand. And our economy needs demand. We need to spark demand.
Okay, the complete evisceration of aggregate demand is absolutely at the center of this. You and Cortez have nailed it. I want you to take a couple of minutes and walk through the bowling plan of how we get, because I think this is going to get another hearing, shipmate. Walk me through the bowling plan on how you get aggregate demand back up and how you do it quickly and the forcing function that you've set up.
Be honest, and I talked to senior advisors, unnamed senior advisors, in the Oval Office with the president on speakerphone, and they all like this, and this is the real key to it. So it's a form of a debit card. So every household, every American household, you can say 200,000. Why not just make every American household? The number ends up being $230 billion to start. So everyone gets this credit card. There's $1,000 on it for food, restaurant, beverage, whatever you want to do in that world, because we're trying to save that industry, right? I did my show from a vacant restaurant last night. We need to help them too. So $1,000 per household for food and beverage and assorted. then $1,000 for anything medical related. And I don't mean like doctors. Yes, doctors, but also you can go to Walgreens, you can go to CVS and pick up stuff there at Walgreens and CVS because they need to stay in business too. All the while you're spending the consumer spending. They're remembering how to spend again. And then $300 into various forms of energy, whether it's heating, cooling, depending where you are in the country, your electric bill, for example. So you got $2,300. Here's the kicker. Use it or lose it. So you got 30 days to either spend that or you lose it. Everyone's going to go out there and inject all that money directly into the economy. If you send someone $1,200, a guy or a family, 24, they may put it in the bank. They may pay a car loan or a mortgage, which may feel good for them, but it's not helping the economy immediately. We have an economy with acute heart attack. They're treating it with a long-term cancer drug. So you need to inject this money. So again, $250 billion ballpark. That's a fraction of what they're spending right now. $4 trillion, $6 trillion. Do it again. Month 2. Do it again if it hasn't sparked. It's almost like putting the paddles on the heart attack victim's chest. Maybe the first zap doesn't work. Maybe the second one does. But when the economy sparks and people realize we're going to be okay and they can spend and they have all these goods in their pantry and the airlines now have some money and restaurants aren't going belly up, the economy starts again and then you stop and you pull it back.
Eric, tell us about give us details on the show on Sinclair Broadcasting.
Steve, we had our biggest audience by 35% last week, and because everyone's really concerned about it. It's Sinclair Broadcast. It's called America This Week. And we are in 91 cities, 191 stations across the country, and it airs at different times. I have Kudlow and Navarro on this week. You want to watch both of those. I talked to Navarro about, how we should punch back China for what they've done to the world with this virus. So good show. You can check it out on, look it up online, check the local listings, as they say.
And how do we what's your Twitter handle? How can people follow you during the day?
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, just at Eric Bowling, EricBolling.
Okay.
No space.
Thanks, brother. It's a hot Twitter account, too. Thank you, Eric Bowling. We'll have you back on the show.
Thank you, Steve. You're doing America a service by getting this information out. You're integral in the delivery of information that fair, unbiased information. That's what we really need.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Here's the issue. I want to go into the details. Here's the issue. We've had an unprecedented event, the pandemic. That's what we talked about. Two things. It's going to trigger an economic crisis, and on top of that, a financial crisis. And this is why you always have to bifurcate these to look at them. Obviously, it's inextricably linked, but you got to disaggregate the problem and look at it. And this is why Cortez and Bowling and others are so important about this. So important. This massive drop in aggregate demand, and particularly in the aggregate demand with the small entrepreneur, who's really been at the core of this turnaround in the American economy. Right? It's the small entrepreneur and the workers. So you have to plug that. You have to make sure to actually have a bridge that holds. You have to have aggregate demand. People have to spend. The genius of what Bowling had said when the first time he mentioned was essentially an EBIT card, right? That is a forcing function because it goes away unless you spend it.
Can we be clear, though, what we're talking about with the bridge, what we're bridging over? Because I think this is one of the things that the media is missing, and I think even as we've called here for a national shutdown, 30 days to save America, explain, Steve, your vision of what the bridge is.
Here's what it is. You have to, and this is why Fauci and Ambassador Dr. Debbie Birx are talking about the second, third wave. You got to just get that out for right now. You must focus just on the issue we have today with the first wave of this pandemic, and you have to. The two models that work are China and Korea. The model that doesn't work is Italy. Right now, we are tracing down the exact curve of Italy, kind of half measures, half enforced. So it's too late right now for Korea. We may be able to get back to that later. That's massive testing, isolation, and the use of the drug. Right?
Yes.
We're not there yet. We have to go to a Wuhan model, whether we like it or not, and that means a hard shutdown today. Lock it down, the whole thing. Lock it down and quarantine. I think New York City and maybe New Orleans. Okay, lock that down hard. So aggregate demand is going to drop even worse than it is now. You have to bridge that with people. You have to infuse cash into the system. This is what Powell even got. That has to be a bridge to the other side, whether that is – we've been at this for 2 weeks, but through half measures. This 30 Days to Save America, whatever we're calling it now, bang, you'd lock that down. And on the other side of that 30 days, maybe even 6 weeks, you can't allow anybody not to miss a payroll. You can't allow anybody not get a paycheck. And you have to have them spend. That's the other thing. They have to spend the money. Not his point's exactly right. Right now, what you're going to do is pay off a credit card. You're going to pay off a loan. That's not what we want. That's all in history. We'll get to that later. Right?
Jay Powell said this morning, get the virus under control, then resume economic activity.
Well, I'll tell you what. We got to take a break. We're capitalists here. We got to sell some commercials. War and pandemic. We're going to get into all. We'll get into the pandemic part, but we got so much of the economic crisis that's going to deal directly in your life. We're going to explain it all to you when we return on War Room Pandemic, episode 75.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States, says nothing is inevitable. That means through human action and human agency, we will get through this, as we always get through this. Episode 75, we're live from Capitol Hill. It's War Room Pandemic. I haven't had the opportunity to announce my wingman, Jack Maxey, who runs with Greg Manns, runs the operations center of the War Room. We see all the constant articles being put up by Kyle Olbert and others on the website. Also, hashtag War Room Pandemic. Haven't had a shout out there. And Jason Miller, the comms director of the Trump 2016 campaign and the communications director for the Trump transition. Okay, where are we? Mr. Jason Miller.
Yeah, I want to play a clip of Ezekiel Emanuel, Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel on CNBC this morning and ask point blank what he thinks about a national shutdown idea and what we need to do to get this thing under control. Let's play it and then we'll come back to discuss.
And therefore, there would be another 3 or 4 weeks on the other side of that. If at the same time we have this rolling across the country with the possibility that people could travel back into other states like New York that might have been on the other end of that peak, how long does this go on for? If we aren't going to do a full national lockdown, if we have this conversation in September, what will we be talking about?
Well, if we don't do a full national shutdown and we actually allow different states to go different ways, and you have Mississippi allowing everyone to gather, you are going to have just these roller coasters where we contain it in some area, then we try to ease it up, and it just blossoms again. And we are never going to get it under control in the whole country. We're going to see, call it a third of the population, and that's a very, very conservative estimate, infected with COVID. And even if we have a low death rate, kind of on the par with South Korea, that's 1 million people dying. Let me remind you, that's twice as many deaths as from cancer in the entire country.
I don't know how he gets to the 1 million deaths. We'll have to figure that out later because some other guys came out later with the thing. But his point is, if you don't lock it down, it can spread. It's Senator John Thune going back to South Dakota from a emerging hotspot, which would be Washington, D.C.
Well, this was actually brought up by one of our listeners. I said I'd comment on it. The guy's in Wisconsin, very patriotic guy. He says, look, we're here in the heartland. We're doing our part. We don't have any problem being shut down. But can somebody please explain to me why there are 3 Delta flights from JFK coming into Milwaukee every day? And this is a real question. I mean, we're giving $50 billion to the airlines, and we're letting them continue to fly and spread the virus. I think it's ridiculous. And now we got 3 weeks. They're saying 3 weeks till anybody sees a check, even the ones who they have the direct deposit information for. And they acknowledge that they don't have that information for the vast majority of people who need the checks. So 30 days to save America is going to turn out to like 60 days to get your check.
Okay, let's break this down for a second. This is what I'm not so sure it's the airline's total responsibility. Remember, Dr. Debbie Burke stood up the other day and said everybody coming out of New York has to self-quarantine for 14 days. I don't want it to be at that general level because then you have flights going from New York to Madison. You have people going from New York now, not just to the Hamptons, to Florida. Florida is becoming, they think, a hot zone. One of the reasons, I think there was in the Times, is that so many people from New York are going down there. That's why you have to – when I say lock down New York City – I mean, coming in or going out. I mean, a quarantine. You don't come out of New York now because you're just going to spread it. That's how I got out of Wuhan to Milan for the Fashion Week. That's what happened in New Orleans with Mardi Gras. This is these centers of this. I think in spring break, I think some of those kids are going to go back to the Midwest and take it up there.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't think a one size fits all. Look, we have to lock down New York City. It's pretty clear, right? You're telling everybody they're going to self quarantine for 14 days. I don't think that that's possible to manage that. These best efforts. You talk about locking down the whole country, and then you let millions of Americans just like, hey, give it your best effort. You know,
not for 30 days. And I think this is part of the reason why it needs to be a broader, patriotic, this is about more than just you. I think if we go to the country and say this is going to be the biggest challenge we've had in the country since World War II, as far as across the board, channel our inner Rosie the Riveter. But this is a completely different battle that we're facing. 30 days. Everyone got to stay shelter in place. We got to lock this thing down. We have to stop this. Not like Italy.
The issue for the government at every level. Remember, the federal government supports the local at the state level. They manage. The local level executes. You have two issues you have to deal with, Jack. Number one is the issue: can we actually physically do it? Okay, I happen to think we can. It's going to be messy, but it can be done. The second issue gets back to the financial bridge. People have to have the cash. They have to have that. Number one, the Treasury, just by fiat, can sit there and waive in mortgage payments, any kind of payments like that, right? So there are things you could do, and I totally agree with you. I think one of the issues we're going to see here over the next days and weeks is the mechanics of getting that cash. Even under this bill, the mechanics of actually getting the cash into people's hands, particularly the small and medium-sized companies, so they can make payroll. They've got a great payroll thing in here, right? That you don't have to pay the loan back if you continue to hire people. It's to keep that and also to get cash into the little guy's hands.
I understand, but we've talked many times over the years about the idea that the average American family can't come up with $400 on a good day, right? So trust me, Wall Street's getting their money instantly on the Fed wire. The airlines are getting their money instantly. Wall Street's getting bailed out again, and the little guy's getting this promise that in 6 weeks you'll get a check. I'm kind of find the whole thing outrageous.
Well, I got to disagree with John. I mean, look at if you're unemployed, if you're laid off, those unemployment benefits, which are basically in summary, in total, will be 4 months at your regular paycheck. Go retroactive back to January 27th. So that basically buys us another 2 months from now until we're through this stimulus. So that's why this bridge is so important, because if we're going to do it, we got to do it now. So people are going to get that money. That's coming to them.
I think also what he's saying, though, is that the unemployment insurance means the guy's got to lay you off. So the number's going to go up. To get the unemployment insurance, you got to be laid off. The system that Bowling and others wanted to make it so you actually didn't have to get to the layoff. You would actually infuse the cash.
But with the small businesses, and I spoke with the CEO of a small business because we're defining it as being under 500, so they have, I think, 100 or 200 employees. Spoke with them yesterday about the structure of these small business loans, and if you're able to keep these employees on board, if you don't have to go and lay them off, then you don't have to repay this loan. And so that's what they plan on doing, so they can keep their workforce intact and in place. They know they have a tough stretch to get through it. They want to be able to rise out of the and rebound and be a marketplace leader again, so they're going to keep them on board.
It's incumbent upon, I think, the White House team and the Treasury team and the Commerce Department, all of it. They've done the macro messaging today. They sent Jay Powell out to the Today Show. They sent Steve Mnuchin's been everywhere, particularly on with Kramer and the guys on CNBC and Maria Bartiromo, all that. Now they've got to, I think, Jack, come out and they have to have a full force. People just have to know the details. What am I supposed to do? How do I get cash? How do I get uninsured? If I'm a thing, how do I get these loans? I think they've done it smartly by using the Treasury Department. They're going to use banks to do it quickly, even more so, I think, than some of the Small Business Administration. I think they'll be part of it, but also just right to banks. And the way Mnuchin's talking about, it's a very easy form to fill out, relatively straightforward. But that they must flood the zone starting today with the details, the granularity. That will take a lot of the, I think, panic and a lot of the paranoia and a lot of the fear that, hey, we have your back, right? We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this together. It's going to be messy, as we just know it is. But here's how we're going to do it. And I think they just flood the zone with that. They set up 800 numbers. They have websites. They have all that set up so people can just go make sure they have access to this.
And keep in mind also, gig economy folks are covered in this as well.
Very big, very big.
And this is huge. I mean, this is a recognition that our economy has changed. So you talk about the proverbial Uber driver. You talk about that independent contractor. And this is going to make a huge difference. Now, are there people who aren't going to be covered in this? Are there people who are directly going to still be affected? Absolutely. Well, guess what? We have a global pandemic. This is going to be tough all the way around. I do think that this bill, while far from ideal, I disagree with the president strongly on the Kennedy Center and some things like that. And I wish Senator Sass's unemployment amendment had gotten included. But look, I think this gives us that coverage to go with the bridge, as you talk about, Steve, because we have to stop this thing now. If we prolong the curve, we're just going to prolong the pain.
Let's go to jump in.
Well, look, I mean, first of all, this idea of shutting down, it doesn't change the curve of infection. It changes the rate of that infection. So you shut it down, you end that curve, that 1 month curve that devastates the hospitals, and you turn it into 3 months. So my problem is,
hang on, I'm not saying that. You're talking about flattening the curve. I'm talking about crashing the curve. I'm saying you literally do a hard lockdown so there's no host bodies. It's beyond just flattening. I just don't want to spread it out. I want to absolutely destroy it so that you've got a lockdown so no host bodies. The virus doesn't have a host to get to.
This morning, there's during the break, we'll make sure that both Steve and Jack both go through this as well. But New York Times has an opinion piece, and again, I'm not saying that this is the end all be all. But Nicholas Kristof, Stuart Thompson, they created a model with Gabriel Go, Stephen DeKennick, Ashley Tweet, and David Fisman, and they said basically on their models on the whole reopen America, social distancing for 4 days of 128 million total infections. Did social distancing for 2 months. Which I don't think anyone here is calling for 2 months, but that's what they did, 14 million total infections. We're talking about smashing and destroying the curve. What I'd like to see here is what a 1 month model would look like going by it, but this is the whole point. We can. If you try to flatten out the curve, that's just the same amount of pain over an extended period of time, just your hospitals get overflowing. We're talking about smashing the curve so you have something like a 14 million total infections as opposed to 128 million.
We're heading in that direction. And here's why. The markets would respond. What businesses don't like is uncertainty. And right now we're in a we're going to half open, half not open. It's very uncertain what actually is happening at the federal level. I mean, you could actually argue if President Trump said today, I want to open everything, nothing really happens because it's all at the state and city level, metropolitan level, they're doing it. What businesses like and what markets like is certainty so they can plan. Hard lockdown for a set period of time. 15 days, which already just takes us through Easter, right? 15 days or beyond, let's say 30, and we monitor it every day. Then when you come back on the other side, you bridge it, right, with Treasury and the Fed and all these mechanisms we got. You got to have a firm, hard bridge. You get to the other side. And once you get to the other side, you have the other things of the bigger companies and all that, but at least we've stopped. We will definitely have dramatically reduced this. And we know this because of the math from Wuhan and the math from South Korea.
But, I mean, Wuhan is still basically under lockdown right now. It's been 2 months. And they're reporting today in, what is it, Zhejiang? I always pronounce it wrong, the kind of independent paper in Beijing. They quote a doctor.
That's not independent. That's still
that's why I say quotation marks. But they quote a doctor in Wuhan who doesn't want his name to be used, who says that they're still having infections every day on the street in Wuhan. That this is nonsense that it's all gone away. I mean,
we didn't say it's all. You're never going to get it all gone away, but you will crush it to the degree that they shut down the listen. All the Chinese, every number out there is a lie, but they've shut down. They've given back all the Javits centers equivalents. They've shut down the 2 emergency hospitals. Life is starting to return, and that was New York City to the third or fourth power. I happen to think New York, is going towards a Wuhan type situation unless we get a grip on it there. And so I think this. I'm just saying that you need certainty. A lockdown will at least give you certainty on how you compress, how you start to shatter this curve. And I think that's what business needs. I think the market will respond very strongly to that. But this is not about the market. We'll also say the key is to save lives. We're in pandemic. The team will return in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back, War Room Pandemic, live on Capitol Hill. A ever-increasing empty nation's capital as now the Senate has bolted. Nancy Pelosi starting her press conference. They're going to wrap their business up here shortly, get it up to the president, and the remaining parts of the House are going to be out of here too. I don't think they're coming back to after Easter, if then. Jason Miller, Jack Maxey, Stephen K. Bannon. We're going to get into more of the pandemic part of it now. You know, we've done the economic, and that's because it's so important for people to understand how they're going to get money, how they're going to get through this, particularly as much of the country has been shut down. I want to pivot back. Jason, walk us back through this 30 days to save America.
Yeah, I want to walk back through this. And the whole point being is we look at the different models. We look at what China did. We look at what South Korea did. We compare it to what Italy did or didn't, probably easier to say. And in every case, the more aggressive action to limit travel and to limit social contact, community spread of the coronavirus has ended up being more successful. And the more strict and the more draconian that governments have gone in clamping down on this.
Do you agree with that, Brother Maxey?
I agree that everybody has to follow their own path. For example, you look at Germany. Germany has a very low death rate. Germany has done almost nothing to lock down on a comparative basis. Germany is allowing each of their federal states to really follow their own plan. I think that there's going to be a historical tale of the tape, and I think that there's going to be shown, I believe, that there's some things that we cannot resolve with money. This is one of them. I mean, you look at what we're talking about. We're talking all hands on deck, okay? But the officers eat first. This is not the kind of leadership I learned in the Navy.
But so tell me what
you're talking about. You're talking about the bailout.
Hold on.
I'm talking about. Look, let's lock down first, and we'll worry about the bailout.
Right.
In a second.
Here's what I'm
once again, you're confusing the issues. If you don't disaggregate, hang on. If you don't disaggregate these issues, you never get to a solution. That's the fog of war. You got to break it down. So we're going to get to the bridge in a second. I agree. The bridge is not perfect. We understand that, and we're going to make recommendations to make it more perfect. And I don't like the fact that you're right that the officers eat first here. But however, they're worried about a collapse of the wardroom. Okay, that's one of the reasons they to use that analogy. They put the cash in at the top level too. They're worried about the crash. Remember, if the financial markets crash, it is the little guy's pension fund that's getting wiped out here. Right, the biggest hits we take. Just note to self, CalPERS has lost $68 billion as of Friday. That's every teacher, every fireman, every cop, every emergency worker in the state of California going to have a hard time, getting 100 cents on the dollar on their pension funds.
And the teachers lost about 25% too in California. Now the irony of California is those teachers and all those employees of California decided to opt out of Social Security and the federal pension plans so that they could get the better deal from California. So we have this federal system. We have people using human agency to make choices. But now the entire country is backstopped by the Federal Reserve. I don't believe it. I think we're looking at Japan's situation where the stock market is flat for 20 years.
You're absolutely correct, and that's an issue we can get to in another day. Look, the good news that Cortez took and other people took by Powell being on Samantha Guthrie to say, and this is what I was talking about on Maria Bartiromo on Sunday, combining the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury to have a mechanism that you could actually go in and lend to investment-grade credits and non-investment grade. This lending directly to Main Street, which is what he was talking about, that's the $4 trillion bazooka plus, is uncharted territory. Okay, this is now we have a central bank that's now, you could argue, it's a philosophical discussion for another day. We're nationalized a lot of stuff here. Mnuchin was very adamant on Kramer saying these are not bailouts. We're not. Reasonable men can disagree with that, right? Particularly the fact of what you're doing with the airlines. But I want to get to that in a minute. That's not the issue. The first issue you have to deal with is the thing itself. The thing itself is the pandemic.
Right.
We have to figure out, and now we got Fauci. And for all the listeners, I'm not beating up on Dr. Fauci. I like Dr. Fauci. I respect Dr. Fauci. He's a good man. The thing that gets me about Dr. Fauci, he's put up as the oracle of evidence-based science. This is what MSNBC every night, evidence-based. Trump doesn't do it. I just want to see some numbers from Dr. Fauci. I don't want to move the goalpost, and particularly what I don't want to do right now. It's not helpful to talk about a second and third wave. We're going to get there, right? That's like when planning for Normandy and you're worried about crossing the Rhine River. I'm going to get to the Rhine. I'm going to plan. I got my things, but if I don't get across the beach and take it, right. You're not going to get to the Rhine River.
To put it just in real simple terms so everyone gets it, there is no economic recovery unless we stop coronavirus.
Exactly.
That is it. I mean, Jay Powell on the Today Show, first time in 30, 50
do we have
years.
That clip? Do we have that clip? Or maybe not right now. We'll pull it in the next hour.
Let me go. I believe this is the clip right here.
Yeah, a lot of people say that after a recession like this, you could see a big bounce back. We didn't see that in 2008. It wasn't like the average recession where you see a drop and then you see a big bounce back. It was a slow and sluggish, uncertain recovery after 2008. But I think I hear you saying that once this public health issue is resolved, you expect a robust bounce back.
What I'm really saying is we don't know. And the sooner we get through this period and get the virus under control, the sooner the recovery can come. There's no other, we don't have comparable experiences to go back and look at. We know that economic activity will decline probably substantially in the second quarter. But I think many expect, and I would expect the economic activity to resume and move back up in the second half of the year. Very hard to say precisely when that will be, and it will really depend on the spread of the virus.
Okay, this is it right here. And look, the president's got a different thing he's working on. Yes, he's talking about, hey, I see the thing coming back hard. It's going to come back great. That's fine. That's what he's supposed to do. This is Katsimatidis. You're supposed to give people hope. You're supposed to give people blue sky. This guy right here is a banker, and he's talking about, hey, we must get through this or there's no recession recovery. We can't talk about, she was asking about the recovery from recession or anything like that, if you don't get through the thing itself. And that's the certainty. That's not that it'll be perfect. Not that we can tell today whether it's 15 days or 30 days, 45 days. One thing I can tell you, it's not 3, 4, or 5 months. The history shows this. And maybe like in Wuhan, it's not going to be perfect because that was Chernobyl. Okay, where they let it go so wild. But if you do it today hard through the whole country, there is a set time frame of 4 weeks or some set period of time where you cross the chasm. Okay, and I agree, you have to bridge that. This is the chief architect of the bridge right there. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back with the next hour, episode 76. We'll come back with Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon. We're going to cover it all, plus the geopolitics of it next hour.